Hi guys, welcome back to My Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. Today I've got another fantastic guest with whom I can explore her journey. And Sabrina Walker Hernandez certainly has got an intriguing journey behind her. And we are now talking to the version 2.0, the upgraded version, having had a big overhaul in her system, literally. So Sabrina, thank you very much for coming on to my show. It is an honor to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I really
am. Sabrina, you were a woman who had clear goals in her life, who you were in control. You were the boss, literally, actually.
Literally the boss, yes.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your life. Tell us a little bit how it was.
So I really was literally the boss. I was a CEO of a nonprofit organization, and we had about a $2.5 million budget. We were in the third poorest county in the United States. But we were knocking it out of the park, you know. I went from a $750,000 budget to a $2.5 million budget. I completed a $12 million capital campaign, and I was really knocking it out of the park, right?
Beautiful.
And then something happened, you know.
Before we go there, what was your NGO doing? What was your task? What was your passion?
My passion has always been about the future, and it's really about youth services. So I was with youth development, and basically why I was with youth development, because people always ask me that, why was I with youth development? And I was with youth development because I grew up as one of those kids. You know, people always say those kids who maybe, I grew up with both of my parents, but I was one of those kids who my mom, dropped out of high school, but she went back and got her GED. And my dad only went to 6th grade. And so they really didn't know a lot about college and education and things of that nature, but they knew that it was a way out, but they didn't know how to pay for it. But they always told me, and I will say this, they always told me, when you're 18 years old, I don't know what you're going to do. You're going to have to join Uncle Sam's army, but you have to get out of here. But they always told me you have to do something. And so I was one of those kids.
Well, please. I come from a very blue collar background as well. There wasn't much money around whatsoever. So I know a little bit, at least from a social strata point of view, what you're talking about. Was there much were there many gang problems where you come from?
There wasn't a lot of gang problems per se. I grew up in the rural South in North Carolina. There wasn't a lot of gang issues, but there were a lot of drug issues. And a lot of times people that are growing up in poverty use drugs to escape. And it was a lot of that. And it was a lot of just a lack of opportunity. And that's really why I got into youth development, because I really enjoy giving kids opportunity. I grew up in a town, like I said, a rural town, but we had a college in our town, 2 colleges, and I never set foot on those college campuses. That was literally in our backyard, but I never had the opportunity. It wasn't encouraged. Whether it was because my parents didn't understand it, or whether because the school didn't identify me in that way, although I had good grades, it just was never encouraged. And so I thought, when I got into youth development, I want to make sure that kids get the opportunity to go on college field trips, get the opportunity to go to a restaurant. You would not believe how many kids, maybe you will with your background as well, but don't get to go into a restaurant because it's that's not where we spend our money, right? Going to McDonald's when I was growing up was a treat. My dad would get paid on Friday, and that was like the big times, you know?
That's
my
true.
my mom had me convinced that, you know, having my friends over for bologna sandwiches and potato chips made me the cool kid on the block. So
on a Friday night now, my parents allowed me to go to a restaurant and get some chips and bring chips home. You could buy them in a big bucket there. So I brought chips home, and that was our treat. So yes, please, I know exactly what you're talking about. No, that's cool. Do you think that had a lot to do with race, or was that equally a lack of opportunities for white kids in the same environment?
I think that it had a lot to do with the socioeconomic background that I grew up with. I think also it had to do with race. Of course, like I said, I grew up in a southern town. So you had one side of the track and you had the other side of the track. And the town was literally divided up by the tracks. Black people stayed on one side, white people stayed on the other side. I was one of those kids. It's very tricky because in school, I looked around, and usually there was only 2 Black people in the class that I had, you know, me and someone else. And it was other white kids. So I understood, and my mom always told me that I was smart. So I understood that I was smart. I just didn't know how. I guess where my passion come from was I was smart, but I didn't know how to navigate the system. And I wanted to make sure that kids understood how to navigate the system, because regardless of socioeconomics and race plays a part in not knowing how to play the game. And I didn't know how to play the game. And I wanted to make sure that kids understood that, how to apply for college, how to apply for scholarships, how to network, how to do all those things. And that's really why I really fell in love with the youth development aspect and why I dedicated my life to it, because I want to teach kids how to play the game.
And after all, if you go back some decades, that was exactly how the civil rights movement acted. They went down there to the South to actually educate people how to vote, how to do those things, which just knowledge that was not immediately available. Right. So here you go. So you're a civil rights, you're a legacy, so to speak.
Yeah. So I really, it is what it is.
It is. And in all fairness, it doesn't have to do too much with race. I think it is of course, sorry, let me rephrase that. In America, there's a huge issue of race relations. No two ways around it. But the lack of knowledge with regards to opportunities that are there that people just don't know about, that lack of knowledge is huge, and that transcends through all strata of society. But the sad thing is, the lower down you are in society, the less you got that knowledge, whilst the higher up you come, the more that sort of seems to sort of be taught, exchanged, etc. So
it's normal conversation at that level, and at the level I grew up with, it's not normal conversation.
Exactly.
And it really is. It's really strange because my journey has taken me. I live in South Texas, and South Texas is 10 miles. I live in Edinburgh, Texas, and I am about 10 miles from the Mexico border. And so the people and the kids that I deal with, that I've spent the last 20 years with, are primarily Hispanic kids. So the population here is 98% Hispanic, 1% African American, 1% Black. So the same issues that I saw growing up in a predominantly Black community is the same issues that I find here. And so, yes, it is about race, but a lot of times it is about just opportunity and the social economic background that you're from. Exactly. If you don't know better, you don't do better. Exactly. And my whole goal was to expose them to better.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But then again, it's actually intriguing because you say the race and you use one descriptor per person, so to speak. But the life doesn't work out like that. I would love to take the whole nation of the United States and force every single one to do a DNA test and actually check out how Black are you really, or how white are you really. And then we're talking race,
Oh,
okay?
yeah, I did a DNA test.
Please, that's
it's
right.
Really cool. I've done the DNA test, and it was really strange. So
is it not? Is it
yeah,
not?
it is.
It's
I'm
beautiful.
Like 1% Native American, 2% Asian. I go, where did that come from?
That's exactly it. Exactly my point. So if everyone was to do that, could you imagine how do we fight wars? You know, I will fight these bloody whatever. And then you look at you, oh, sorry, forgot. I'm half.
Yeah, somewhere in the DNA it happened. So it's really strange.
Brilliant. So you actually got somehow the chance. You took the opportunities that were offering themselves to you, and you got going. You actually got out of school. You actually finished school, which is a big achievement for many kids in poorer socioeconomic places. And that is did you have to go to different schools to achieve that goal?
I did. I started out when I graduated from high school, believe it or not, and I graduated with a good GPA. But again, I was not, although I was in those gifted and talented classes, I didn't have a particular counselor that kind of took me by my hand and showed me how to do scholarship applications or did any of that. So I basically started out at the local community college, and I got a scholarship at the local community college. And then I joined the Army, and I tested so well that they gave me, I think, $100,000 in education. And so the military paid for my undergraduate and my graduate degree. I walked away from school not owing anything. Of course, I had to serve my time.
Sure.
I had to do my time.
How many years?
I did 2, not at the time was a good deal. I did 2 years active duty and I did 4 years reserves. So not a bad investment at all. I don't think it's a bad investment.
Not at all.
No student debt. So I just remember it's really funny. My when I did my undergraduate degree, I majored in pre-law. And so I was going to be a lawyer. And I remember I interned for a nonprofit, and that's kind of how I fell in the nonprofit world. I really loved it, but I interned for some nonprofits. I used to mediate between landlords and tenants. And when the landlords were trying to kick out the tenants and turn off the water and do kind of things that were just not legal, I would mediate between them. And I got to work with a bunch of attorneys, and I was like, I don't like them. Think like that. That's not what I want to do. So I called my parents and I said, well, I'm not going to go to law school. I'm going to go to graduate school. I'm going to get a master's degree. They were so disappointed because they had no concept what a graduate degree was. They knew what a lawyer was and they knew what a doctor is. I mean, that's what people want their kids to grow up, lawyer, doctor, because you know what that is. But they had no idea what a graduate degree was. They were so disappointed. But it worked out. But they were literally disappointed.
But again, that is the story of virtually every guest I've got on this show, that there is this need to prove yourself to others, the need to be loved by others, and often enough to their own detriment, where they actually go into professions or go into certain states within their lives, certain, for example, one person was following what her parents thought and the society thought, I need to get married, I need to have kids, I need to have everything. And not really realizing that deep down she was actually gay, she was actually a lesbian. And so she tried to conform as much as possible, only then much later to say, well, it destroys me, I need to come out, kind of a thing. Yeah. And that's what we do. That's ingrained in us. We want to be there for others, we want to look good, and there are good genetic reasons why we do not want to disappoint the tribe that is around us, because otherwise we get ostracized, we get thrown out of the tribe. And 50,000 years ago, that would have been a death sentence. Yes. Nowadays, we have still got the same motivations, though. We have to please everyone.
Right, you just don't want to disappoint people.
So where did you get the guts from to tell your parents, actually, no?
I think that I think I actually got the guts from my parents.
Perfect.
If that makes sense. Just because they had a lack of education didn't mean that they didn't understand and know. My mom is a very religious person, and she is in the Pentecostal church. And she followed a female preacher, which at the time was unheard of, right? And so, but that's the choice that she made, and her family really didn't like it. But she showed me how to stand up for what you believe in.
Nice.
And so I got it from her.
Nice. Now, so you can blame her. That's what I like that.
So it worked out, Perfect. It worked out. She still doesn't understand quite what I do or what I did, but she knows that I have a good living, and it worked out.
Brilliant. So there you were, having worked hard, having found a way to leave a mark on the world, to be the person, and you grew through that NGO, and you rose through the ranks to become the CEO. And this would have been an interesting job, because you're the CEO, you're responsible. So how many hours a day did you work?
I was working anywhere from 12 to 15-hour days.
That's about it.
literally working 12 to 15-hour days. But, it didn't bother me because I so enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. It was a challenge of a new day. Every day was something different. I mean, when you're working in the nonprofit world, you never have enough resources. So you're wearing multiple hats and you're doing multiple things. So the hours didn't necessarily bother me. I had a very supportive spouse. My kids, because I worked in youth development, my kids could go to work with me when they weren't in school. So that worked out as well.
True.
And it's crazy now that I think about it, though, because of what has happened to me. I shouldn't have done it. But at the time, it felt, I would be lying if I say it didn't feel good. It felt good. It felt good because, one, I was giving back. Two, because I knew I was good at it. And I felt a success in it. I'm not necessarily good at being a housewife. I'm not necessarily good at cooking and all that stuff like that. I wasn't good at that. That took work.
Uh-huh.
So if I could stay in the office and do that as opposed to come home and deal with the spouse, I'd rather do the work.
Ooh, very nice. So how's your husband with cooking?
He doesn't cook either.
Oh, goodness. Oh, yeah.
Neither one of us cook. So it was an issue.
Come on, kids, grow up quick. You need to learn how to cook.
You need to learn how to cook. We know. But yeah, I was good at it, and I loved it. So it did at times feel like work, but at most times it didn't feel like work.
Oh,
and that can be very deceptive because it is work, because it is stress on the body. It is all of those things, regardless of how much fun you think you're having.
Exactly. There's a word for it. It's the disease of being self-employed. And it is a disease because you're putting everything and then some into it. So a beautiful way of getting burnout.
Yes.
But that was not what stopped you.
Yeah.
One day you didn't feel so right.
I didn't feel so right.
Tell us, how did that start? What was the very first thing where you thought, something is not right?
Well, so I went on a business trip, and I thought I had pulled a muscle hiking because I went on a business trip, and it was in Arizona. So it was close to my birthday weekend, and I thought, roll it over into it. So we went hiking, and I thought I really had pulled a muscle, and I kind of put it off in the back of my head, and my back started hurting. And I put it off in the back of my head, and that was in January, mind you. then it started hurting more. And I said, well, and I kept going to the gym, and I kept kind of doing things, and I would go to the office, and I even had people in the office would come check on me, and they would literally, this sounds stupid right now, but they would literally come in my office and stretch me. That's how bad my back was hurting. I had staff people that would come in my office, and they would look at me, and then they would stretch my back. And I was like, okay, it feels better. It feels better. And then I started going to a chiropractor, and then he was like, this is not, your body's not responding the way it should be responding. I think you need to go in for an MRI. So then he sent me in for an MRI, and I got the test results, and they said suggestive of lymphoma or multiple myeloma, which is types of cancers, for those that don't know. And that was in May. So from January till May, I was in severe pain. I was popping probably 4 ibuprofens every 2 hours, to be honest. And I was still going to work, and I was still doing everything because we had things that we had to get done. But yeah, and it got really bad, and the MRI results came in, and when they told me, it was very not emotional at all. The doctor came in and said, she gave me the paper, and I basically read the paper, and she said, any questions? And I'm like, well, yeah, there's questions.
Oh, yeah, come on.
Right?
Come on.
And then she kind of answered, she kind of said, well, you won't know until you take this other test. And she said, my assistant would come in and talk to you. And so the assistant came in. I sat there for like 30 minutes before someone came in. And she came in and she said, well, this was May, mind you. She said, we can't get you an appointment to confirm this diagnosis until July. And I freaked out in my head, and I said, there's no way that I can do this. I can't have these questions in my head until July. So I said, thank you. And I got in my car, and the fortunate part about it is I think that our lives, although I felt in control, I know that God is in control of our lives. And I really think that I was placed in Texas, met my husband, had that whole journey, wound up in Texas for one of those moments in my life. And so what I did was I immediately went online and looked up MD Anderson, which is 5 hours away from my house. This is the #1 cancer treatment facility in the world. And I got an appointment within 3 days.
Beautiful.
And then I called my mom and I bawled.
Good. Good.
Yeah, because I had to get that out. Sure. And she was like, I don't understand what you're saying. You're crying too hard. You need to tell me what's going on. And I'm like, so I went through that. And then I went to MD Anderson, and I had to tell my husband. My husband does not react very well to stressors, to news. So I had to tell him, and we went to MD Anderson, and I got there, and she tells me, the doctor that's doing the intake, she goes, okay, well, she says, you probably don't have, it looks like, what did she say? She said, you probably don't have, she did the test and said, you probably don't have multiple myeloma. You probably have lymphoma, because it's very rare to get both of those. I mean, she was adamant. It's very rare to get both of those. And I was like, okay. And I said, well, by the way, I have this lump right here. Oh, yeah. And she was like, then she started to panic, because she's like, oh, you didn't say that. And so I had to go in. It was a journey. So then I had to go in and do the test where they get the cells out and test all that. Well, in that process, I found out I was allergic to propofol, which is what killed Michael Jackson. And so I had acute pancreatic attack, and I was in the hospital for 30 days with a tube down my throat.
Goodness.
Could not eat. And this is before the official cancer diagnosis. This was trying to get to the cancer diagnosis.
Unbelievable.
It was a journey. So my husband called in my mom and my sister and my best friend. He called in all the troops and he's like, I don't know if she's going to make it. And I don't know. And I'm like, I don't remember any of this, kind of going on. But I get through that. And then they say, okay, we can start treating you for cancer now. And so in my head, okay, tell me what I got to do. Tell me what I need to do. I got it all mapped out. Okay, I'm thinking I have lymphoma. I'm good. Lymphoma is curable, right? For those who don't know a lot about cancer, lymphoma is curable. And you don't get, because this is what the doctor told me, you don't get lymphoma and myeloma together. It's a 1% chance. It just doesn't happen, right? So I'm going through my first chemo and I did okay. And then I get this new doctor and he's like, well, your numbers are looking good for the lymphoma, but the myeloma. And I'm like, wait, I don't have myeloma. And he's like, yes, you do. He's like, you have lymphoma and you have myeloma. And I bawled again because my grandmother died from myeloma. And I just bawled because I guess the faith journey, I guess the conversation prior to this is I was having that conversation with God about faith in my head. I was really having a conversation with God about faith in my head. And I kept saying, I've never had real tragedy. How do you know if you have faith if your faith has never been tested? Right? That was where I was. I don't know why my mind was there. I have no idea why I was having those conversations in my head and with God. And I just kept saying, well, how do you know? The traditional things have happened in life. I'm pretty optimistic. I know things are going to happen in life. Things don't really get me off kilter too much because I expect things to, ebb and flow, good and bad, all that. I lost my grandparents, but that's the traditional way of life. You lose your grandparents. I hadn't lost my parents or my kids were healthy. Life was decent, And I was having these conversations and at some point when I was laying in the hospital bed in my head, I guess I was thinking, well, be careful what you ask God for because you just might get the test of the lifetime. And I was like, okay. So, I was really, for a while there, I was really, I don't want to say scared. I want to say I was really, scared is not the word because I've always had faith, but I was really, I don't know if it's fearful because my prayers are I always end my prayers with let your will be done. And if God's will is to take you and you're praying let your will be done, you have to resolve that in your head, if that makes sense.
Very much so.
But if that's always been your journey, there's no change in your journey if that's what your journey is, right?
You can't ask for something and then say, well, actually, I've changed my mind. Sorry, no, I didn't mean it that way.
Right. But in the back of my head, I was like, well, your grandmother, she died from multiple myeloma.
Yeah.
She died from multiple myeloma. Are you seriously saying let your will be done? Are you seriously saying let your will be done? And it was a battle between faith and fear for a while. It really was a battle between faith and fear because faith for me was, and still is, that things are going to work out. And workout may not be that means that you're going to be here in this physical realm. Workout, things are going to work out could mean that it's your time to leave. And you just have to get comfortable with that idea. And the battle of the fear of leaving, one, right? And two, the fear of not having accomplished what you were put here to do. That was the other fear for me. Have I accomplished have I lived my purpose? Have I truly lived my purpose? And being in a nonprofit world and having that passion to help and that passion to give back, I really wanted to be able to say that I lived my purpose. And so I wasn't comfortable saying that at that time, although I was working 12, 15 hours a day. Was I doing that, like I told you at the beginning, because it validated me? Or was I doing that because it was my purpose? So all those things came into play. and I'm still,
I want to add here a few things just for the listeners. From a doctor's point of view, may I say, in the first instance, the multiple myeloma or myelomas and lymphomas, what we're talking about is two different forms of cancer. Mm-hmm. Cancer means that a cell in your body starts misbehaving and the body can't deal with it. And so it starts to grow and more cells are coming and are starting to destroy the body. So that's what cancer does. And cancer can come out of every tissue that you can imagine, from skin to bone to blood to lymph cells to bone marrow, etc. So a myeloma is something that comes from the bone marrow. A lymphoma is something that comes from the white cells, those cells that are normally defending the body against foreign things that are coming into the body. So the police, so to speak, in the system. And when lymphomas happen, then you typically get these kind of swellings, the kind of lymph nodes that are sort of underneath your skin that your doctor might feel when you've got a cold. These lymph nodes start to swell, and they can swell throughout the body. So that's a lymphoma, myeloma, more lesions within the bone.
Yeah, I had lesions in my back. That's why my back was hurting.
Indeed, yeah. Right. So there you go. And that explains sort of the two things. Now, both things can kill you. Mm-hmm. And luckily with myeloma, let's rephrase that. With lymphoma, there are certain lymphomas that with aggressive chemotherapy, you indeed can sort out once and for all. But myeloma, not such a possibility. Oh. So that just to get the facts right. With the propofol that you said, yes, you're right. Bloody Michael Jackson, of course, died with it, and he should have never had that drug. Propofol, guys, this is a standard drug that we use as soon as you go off to sleep for surgery. It's virtually guaranteed nowadays that you get propofol. No, we don't kill our people with propofol. To have an allergic reaction to propofol is exceptionally rare. I mean, for crying out loud, you're talking like once in a lifetime kind of rare. And that's right, exactly. Now, if it was an allergic reaction, I'm not so sure because I haven't seen your medical record, so I don't know. So I'll take your word at it. Yes. The pancreatitis, because you have had lymph nodes that are throughout the body, it could very well be that some lymph node was pressing on the duct that comes out of this pancreas, and therefore it got a backflow there, and therefore you got a pancreatitis, which made you sick as a dog and sent you basically into the hospital. So there are a number of variations out there. So please, guys, don't have an anesthetic tomorrow and you suddenly you see that white stuff and you think, oh my God, he's killing me. That's not the case. Okay.
Yeah, no, so I need not the case at all. They told me very rare.
That's right. So but again, the other thing I want to say is I feel sorry for you because the way that communication had occurred in your case where was maybe not so ideal because there was a lot of things where I shrugged my head and said, really, no. And we certainly don't try to do that. And you can actually expect a bit better than this kind of, oh, I don't know, maybe in 2 months or maybe after Christmas.
Right. Yes. It was very alarming.
No, no. Having said that, one last thing, medical, then we come back to your story.
Okay.
The problem, of course, is now with COVID, we have got no longer a normal system. You may very well have a situation where all your resources are being thrown towards COVID and towards people who are really, really, really sick, at the detriment of people with cancer or other chronic diseases that suddenly get their clinics canceled because the doctors are just, they can't do it. So right now, we are not talking about normal medical systems. We are talking about systems in distress. And there will be people who will not get their diagnosis in time. And there will be people who die because other people do not wear the masks, because other people do not wash their hands or social distance.
Right.
These are just because some idiots and assholes out there think they have got all the rights in the world. They are actually killing people.
They really are.
Yeah.
They really are. And for that reason, I really don't leave my house. And since March, I only leave for my doctor's appointments. And that's because I have to get bone treatments because my bones are kind of not right either because of everything that you said. And so I have to get treatments to strengthen my bones, and I'm on chemo pills. So I only really leave the house for those treatments, and even my appointments at MD Anderson have been telemed. So because Houston is a hot spot as well. So
exactly. So you guys out there, if you listen and you are actually right now saying, "Oh, I've got the right to not wear a mask," please listen to Sabrina. Okay, that is hers. That is the real life. Yours is a life of privilege and of entitlement. And I would like to ram that mask down your throat and see how you breathe with that. Okay, so that's the reality. Please, guys, we all have got a responsibility, and one of them is to look after the people around us, and that is by being nice, wash your hands, cough into your arm, and wear a mask and social distance.
It's very true, because things like the common cold could kill me, and I think that's just a common cold. And so people just don't understand it. I think because they're not in that situation, they don't understand. But there's a lot of people walking around with compromised immune systems that it's not really about you. It's about your neighbor. And
Absolutely.
love that neighbor.
Absolutely. And I think that it is such a little thing. It is such a little thing that shows common courtesy and respect and dignity and all that. All those things that you demand for yourself, guys, out there. I want to be treated with respect. Yeah, then show it. So good point. So that's my little rant for today. Sorry. No, I will not cut that out of the interview because I think it's important that we have that out there, because for Sabrina, it's a matter of life and death if you wear your mask or not. So therefore, there you go.
Yeah.
Bloody hell. So here you are, CEO, a woman who is burning the candle on both ends and in the middle. And suddenly, bang.
Yeah, suddenly bang. I got stopped in my tracks. And it's really funny because as I was going through the chemo, my brother-in-law and my sister came to visit me. They live in North Carolina, and they came to Texas to visit me. And my brother-in-law Savalas really did a gut check on me, because I wanted to literally sleep through the whole thing. I did not want to deal because I was not in control. And I thought, if I just lay here and when I wake up and do this, it'll all be over. Right? It'll be over.
Just like that.
And just like that. And he did a gut check on me. He's like, you can't sleep through this. You got to get up, and you got to deal, and you got to do what you got to do. And I'm glad he said that, because it did render a gut check for me. And eventually I got to the point where, you know what? 12 sessions of chemo, we can do this. And we're gonna get through this. And I did my 12 sessions of chemo, and I did a stem cell transplant in January, and
Cool.
I'm doing well now. And in the middle, while I was in the hospital, I don't know if I've really changed internally a lot. While I was in the hospital, my husband, because I really did have a bad reaction to one of my chemos, and he was like, "Okay, you need to retire." He was totally convinced it was the stress of the job that brought the cancer on. That was just his bottom line. It's the stress, and I can't do it. And so I had my 20 years of service. So I said, okay, I'll retire. But as I was sitting there and I was going, oh my God, but I love what I do. I love what I do. How am I going to do what I do? So I came up with this great compromise, right? I'm going to start a consulting firm working with nonprofits. And that's how I spent my 30 days in the hospital with my stem cell transplant, incorporating my business and building my website and doing that.
Is that a bad thing? Not at all. Not at all. Because that is what you needed at that moment. That was the glimmer of hope. That was your survivor coming out and saying, okay, I understand my life as I've led it so far was great. But right now there's a spanner in the works. Okay, what else can I do? And that is a question that a survivor asks herself. And that is such a powerful thing. There was in the 70s in Germany, there was a study done amongst cancer patients, and they did psychological interviews and grouped them into kind of survivor attitude. I will survive with, oh, no, it is what it is, and etc. So the kind of give up attitude. And then they matched the cancers and made sure that each cancer is exactly the same, etc. And they found that the survivors survived 3 times as long as those people that gave up. So really good. So survivor.
Purpose. Yeah,
absolutely.
To look forward to something, to have a future, to plan for something. I needed that. And,
exactly.
And that's what I did. Now, my husband didn't necessarily agree with it.
So what was his solution? What was he saying?
He was like, you need to slow down. This is like telling you to slow down. You're going to stress yourself out. And why are you doing this? You don't need to do this. And I'm like, but I do. Yeah. I do need to do this. It's eccentric. It's something that I need to do. And even till today, it's a year later, and I'm doing my business, and he'll still look at me and say, you're doing it again. You're doing it again. Like, no, I'm not. I am in my happy place.
That's right. But it's 2:00 in the morning. You're still into
You're doing it again. But this is my happy place. You don't understand. So
okay. One could, of course, say that there is a bit of a degree of escapism. So you knew you couldn't sleep for a year. So, therefore, well, if you work hard for a year and forget about the other challenges, that is, of course...
It all worked out.
Hey, it is what it is. It is. You need to figure out what works for you in your life. And it might be hard to fathom for others.
Yes.
But as long as you are happy and content, and as long as you can make sense of the challenges that are thrown at you, then I think you're on the right path. Yeah. The moment you just do something in order not having to deal with the reality, I think that would be a shame, because there are some questions that you need to answer, and these are the hard questions, the negative emotions, the very real fear of mortality, the very real fear, well, if I was to pass away now, what was to happen?
Right.
And certainly my mum passed away from breast cancer, and she never asked that question. And I was far too traumatized at that time. I never asked her that question either. So it was hiding till the very last second. And it is a shame. That is a shame.
Yeah. And some people deal with it like that. My husband deals with it like that. I am more of, I don't know what you call it, and I'm hoping you can tell me, but I am more of a planner. So I went, I got my will done. I got all those things in place, and I said, this is the picture I want at my funeral. This is the song I want to have sung. This is how I want it. And if you do anything different, we're going to have a problem. So
Very
I was
nice.
one of those, but he was very upset every time I brought it up. So he was one of those, but I don't know. It just seems, you ever dealt, I'm sure you have, the law of attraction and the secret and all those. In my head, everything worked out because that's what I was attracting. I was trying to put out what I wanted back. In my head, everything worked out. That was the law of attraction. However, I did have some practical things in place just in case something happened.
How beautiful is that? That is exactly, you have the both of best worlds, is it not? That is, you need to be a realist to only think law of attraction and only think that somehow, because I think positive, therefore everything will be rosy and positive and nice around me. Nah. That's the same as if I was to go into my job and say, oh, I'm such a positive guy now, so therefore I will never have an emergency because no, I'm just far too positive about that. Nah. Somehow life has got other plans.
It's the ebb and flow. So you have to kind of deal with both.
Exactly right. No. So it is what it is. So I like your attitude, and I like your backbone, so to speak. However painful it is now, the backbone.
In there.
Exactly right. Oh dear.
The other thing that keeps me going is the science has come so far. From the time that my grandmother was diagnosed with myeloma to now, the science has just really come so far. I remember when my grandmother went through myeloma, it was really bad because we lived with my grandmother for a while. And I remember her going into the hospital, and I remember the doctor like having to assist her with just bodily functions because it gets that bad. Till to now where after I got to my stem cell doctor, he basically told me to look at it like having diabetes. He said, take care of yourself, exercise, take your chemo pill, and you can maintain. And that really helped me. I will say that really helped me. But at the same time, the advancements that have taken place since my grandmother got diagnosed to now, just the stem cell transplant alone is something that they probably would not have done for myeloma 10 years ago. So.
Is absolutely, and science continues to evolve, and that's the beautiful thing. Unfortunately, life also continues to evolve and comes up with new things such as COVID, which suddenly put a spanner again into the works. Yes. And this will not be the last disaster that hits mankind. Right. In actual fact, we were well and truly overdue of COVID, because normally pandemics like influenza come every 30 years thereabouts, and we didn't have one since the 50s. Right. So we were well and truly overdue. And things will change. We are living in uncertain times. So I think that is the only given that I can assure you about. So therefore, it is so important to learn from people like you how they have dealt with the challenges that suddenly were thrown upon them. You didn't ask for it, but you rolled with the punches, and you had the level of communication with the people around you. You had people who actually, like your brother-in-law, actually pulled your socks up and said, come on, this is, okay. So, and that is so important. So the power of human connection, the power of you listening to others and opening up to others to actually say, actually, I I am thinking about my death. I am thinking about the funeral arrangements. And no doubt this was hugely painful for your husband. So that's the completely other side of the story. Those people that love you and feel incredibly hopeless and powerless in their own right, because they want to see you happy. They hate you to see you in pain, all those kind of things. So that's a completely different journey there, or just as important. Because for every survivor like you, there's at least one other person, and probably 2, 3 other persons, including sisters, brothers, husbands, and parents, who are suffering as well. So it is, no, it's beautiful to see.
My kids, I have 4 kids, and I try not to let them, right or wrong, my approach with my kids, and they're older. I mean, my oldest is 30. I have a 28, 27, and then I had an 18-year-old. Right or wrong, my approach for them was they are going to respond how I respond. So if I project confidence and positivity, that's the way they're going to receive it. And that's what I did most of the time, 99.9% of the time. It was one time that my daughter, she was pregnant with her first child, and tradition is I do all the baby showers. But I was having such a hard time after one of these chemos, and I pulled in a room and I said, Nadia, I don't think I can do it. I really don't. And I started crying, not because I was in pain, but because I felt like I was disappointing her and not doing the family tradition. And I had a hard time processing that. And she said, "It's okay, Mom. It's okay, Mom." And then I thought, okay, I handled that pretty well. And then my husband came in the room and he was like, "What do you do to Nadia?" And I said, "What?" He goes, "She's in the laundry room crying." And I go, "Oh no," because she's more like me. She's not a crier. So I was like, I must have come across really, really bad, But it was just so raw to me. Because I love family traditions.
No, you didn't come across wrong. You let the truth come out, and you gave her permission to let her mask down. Okay, so don't think for a moment that she didn't know. The moment she heard myeloma, she would have been on Google and looking it up, and the same with lymphoma. That is what kids do. That is, they know so much, but they try to please you. They try to keep the mask up. They try to be the perfect children in order to support mom. So therefore, they fought their own battles with this. So here you are. You both let your mask slip a bit, and that's not necessarily something wrong.
Yeah. Even sitting here talking about it right now brings me to tears almost, because I felt like I feel as if I disappointed her, because I am the one in the family that is, I don't freak out. I don't freak out. I married a person who freaks out, so we balance each other. And so I'm the one who keeps it together. But in that moment, I freaked out just a little bit, and it upsets me. But hearing you say that makes me feel a whole lot better, because it is almost like you said that we didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about. Although I talked about it in my head about mortality and immortality, and I was okay with it, we didn't verbalize it out loud to each other. So that makes perfect sense. And that makes me actually feel a whole lot better. It does. So you helped. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. No, I think it is something that we all are not very good in. Here you are truly a self-made woman who, by controlling every aspect around her, you were achieving what you were achieving. So you had a lifetime of this successful behavior, and now suddenly life is changing. Life is changing and it's beyond your control. So therefore, you still will use the same coping mechanisms, which are actually very positive and very good, those of a fighter for you, but they come with a bit of a disadvantage in this particular case. And that's what I, for a long time, didn't know how to do, to actually talk and communicate my own feelings, the negative emotions particularly. I had no idea how to deal with them, and I relied on alcohol. I relied on numbing the pain, not dealing with the pain. I never had the discussion with my mum how she was feeling about her cancer. I never had those discussions that I would have today. Instead, I was literally drowning my sorrows, and it was what it was. Right. That I didn't know any better at that time, and I try nowadays to model a different behavior to my boys. Right. I try to show them that I can talk about my emotions, and rather than explode in their face, I tend to say, look, guys, right now I feel quite ratty, and I don't actually know why it is, but right now I could rip your head off. But I don't mean it, and you probably have done very little. Yes, you didn't clean up, but so what? It is probably more my problem like that. By actually talking about it like that, I give myself permission to actually recognize what's going on and verbalize it. And I give them a chance to not walk into a knife by them realizing, well, okay, I better clean up, actually, kind of a thing. So, but this is something that only can do now after a journey of 7 years, so to speak. And you have had, when was your initial diagnosis?
My initial diagnosis was in 2018, so it's just been 2 years.
2 years now.
Mm-hmm. 2 years now. Yeah.
Happy birthday to you. God, yeah. And see, that's the gallow humor. That's the gallow humor, because ultimately, it is, here you are laughing your head off, and other people will probably cringe the way I've said that. And it is just so bizarre, because when you go through hell, you need to keep going, and sometimes a gallow humor is the best thing to get you there.
It's the best thing to get you there. I mean, hey, they say laughing prolongs life, so every laugh I'm prolonging.
Hell yes. Yes.
I don't know. I mean, what is the alternative? And that's what I tell people. What is the alternative? I mean, at the end of the day, none of us is guaranteed tomorrow. None of us is guaranteed tomorrow. So what can we do today to make the world a better place for tomorrow? Do everything that you can do today.
Indeed.
Because no one is guaranteed tomorrow. And so we're all living in that. We all have that same guarantee. It's just that I've been diagnosed, and it's more in the forefront of my mind than it is for most.
Correct.
But we all live in the same paradigm.
Sabrina, where are you now? Or 9, let me rephrase that question. What is your vision? Your life has changed, but where are you going now?
So I'm building an empire. No.
Yay! See, there must be a little bit of German in you as well. We just had this discussion before about we all need to do a DNA test, because there is so many different traits in us.
So many lines that cross. I tell my husband that now. He goes, "What are you doing on that computer? You're on that computer again. It's 12 o'clock at night." I'm going, building an empire. So here's what the empire looks like. So
come on, show me.
Here's the empire. So really what I am trying to do is I'm trying to support other nonprofit CEOs that are out there, and nonprofit founders and people in that arena, because it is stressful. I mean, there is no doubt about it. It is stressful. At the end of the day, when you're serving in those roles, whether people get paid or not get paid, whether clients get serviced or not get serviced, it's all up to you, because you're responsible for the fundraising. You're responsible for engaging the board members. You're responsible for that organization. And so what I have done, I don't know how I'm going to build an empire on this philosophy, but it's going to get there. So what I have done is I have set up this nonprofit consulting firm, and I'm working with a lot of clients offline, helping them, identify staff and things like that. But at its core is I have a website, and it's www.supportingworldhope.com. But everything pretty much up there is free. So I have a free resource library where if you need a job description for a board member, if you need a strategic plan, if you need whatever kind of thing that you need, is in that library. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? You can go into that library, pull it, customize it to your organization, and do it like that. I have a Facebook group where I go in and I do free coaching to people that are CEOs or founders of nonprofits. I give them free coaching. I send out a newsletter every day at 7:30 in the morning. You get a newsletter, and it always has a tip in there or something that you can, put into play right now, and that's free. Well, my friends, because I do everything free, they're like, look, girl, you got building an empire, you got to make some type of money. So I'm learning how to do an online course where I am teaching a 6-week course, teaching people how to fundraise based on building relationships. Because I think at the end of the day, I think that's my true gift. I think my true gift is the ability to build relationships. And I think my success was credited to the fact that I am good at building relationships across the board. It doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter your race. It doesn't matter your political affiliation. I have a lot of friends. I mean, it's America. I'm not a Republican, but I got a lot of friends that are. And I can get along pretty much with anyone and build a relationship with them. And that, to me, has been the key to my fundraising success. And so I said, okay, fine, I'll build a course around that and I try to teach people how to do that.
That is the hardest thing
Yes.
for an NGO, because NGOs typically attract people who are passionate, but they are not necessarily educated in what to do. So therefore, there is no playbook there. There is no course there. So this is damn good. Yes. So yes. I see the need for that. Yes. And I mean, how many? There must be what? 250,000 NGOs in the United States?
In the United States alone, there is. Yeah. In my county alone, when I kind of did the research and said, well, what does it look like? There's like 14,000 registered nonprofits in my county alone. But I can probably name on my hand like the successful ones. Yeah. It's like people start them, but they're trying to run them off passion and not necessarily business, and then they fail.
Exactly.
But there is a business to the nonprofit world. I always tell people nonprofit is just a tax designation. It's still a business, and you still have to run it.
Correct.
You can't live off passion alone. You really do have to do the other parts to it. And so if I can teach people to do that, I think that I would. That's how I'm going to build an empire.
I like it, Sabrina. I know the need is there, and I think if I was an NGO CEO, I would see that lack. I would, if I suddenly came across your course, I would jump at it with no questions asked, because there can't be so much out there. Because and to reinvent the wheel is just painful. Yeah. So time is everything.
There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Exactly. Really, no need. Okay. I do have a workshop that's coming up, and it's free.
Hey, there you go.
I know I'm gonna get there, but I do have a workshop that's coming up October the 27th through the 30th, and basically I have 12 experts in the nonprofit world that's coming in, and we're going to be talking about fundraising, board development, and marketing. Beautiful. And it's a 3-day conference, 3 hours each, because nobody has time to sit in a conference all day online. We're kind of, that's not going to happen. But they're going to be talking about peer-to-peer fundraising, how to raise money online. They're going to be talking about how to engage your board. They're going to be talking about how to market and brand your nonprofit. And there's going to be no cost to it. So I encourage people to sign up for it.
Beautiful. Is there a Facebook? Is there a website specifically for that?
It's called buildathriving.nonprofit.com. And it's actually up right now to get on the wait list.
Perfect.
We don't technically start registering.
Guys, just look down there into the description of the podcast and the YouTube channel. We have everything down there, so you can just click on that and get straight to Sabrina's passion, her new vision. And no doubt, if you are indeed running an NGO or maybe just want to learn more about a skill that is so important, which is communication, and the other skill that is so important, how to attract money, then these are some pretty good places to start. So, no, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Well done, Sabrina.
Thank you.
Sabrina, I'm so pleased for your passion, and I'm so pleased that you were able to share today with us your path and your story, because there's so many lessons in there, so many lessons of hope, of survival. And with that, I mean the positive thing, the need to recognize that there's a problem, to stop, to think, to adapt, to change. And it's okay from now and then to feel really, really sad about something and to have a pity party. And that's okay. That's absolutely fine. That's normal. Just don't build your tent over there in the pity pit. No, it is just, go there.
I have a philosophy around that, and people always laugh at this philosophy, but it's carried me through. Let me just say this, especially about the pity party. I go, everybody deserves a pity party, right? We all do, and we're human. We're going to have it. But I say you get 3 days.
Good. 3 days, I like that. I like that.
Pity party, because Jesus died and rose in 3 days, so that's all you get.
Excellent. Love it. Love it, Sabrina.
That's all you get.
Guys, if you're religious, that's it. So 3 days, 72 hours. Sorry, guys, time is running.
Time is running, and you got to get up. You got to make a plan.
Oh, I love it, Sabrina. I love it. Guys, this was a fantastic interview. Thank you very much for hanging around and listening to us here. Lots and lots of things to learn. Sabrina, it was an honor to have you on my show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen. And I really do want to say thank you. You gave me a new perspective on the situation with my daughter. And because I really was feeling bad about it. But now the way that you framed it for me, it was probably a great emotional release for her.
Correct.
So thank you.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
And you guys out there, look after yourself. Make the most out of this minute, this second, because that's all you have got. You might as well make the most out of it. Look after yourself. Bye.